Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a good morning at you. July 20, 2023. And it's a Thursday. It's our last day together this week. I'm up pretty fast. I don't even know if this is true, but it's pretty astonishing. Well, it's not astonishing. Come on, Cullen. Again, I can't be certain that anything's true. This is because I saw it on Twitter. I have no idea if it's a reliable source, even though it has a blue check mark, which used to make it a reliable source, but it no longer is under Musk. Anyone who gives him $8.50 a month can be a reliable source. But it sure sounds true. And it says this. It sounds like Trump has taken to his Truth Social to say this about if he gets sent to prison. Quote, I think it's a very dangerous thing to even talk about because we do have a tremendously passionate group of voters, much more passion than they had in 2020 and much more passion than they had in 2016. I think it would be very dangerous. That, of course, is a Trumpian threat. Never quite come out and say it, but whistle to his hugs of Thords, his Thords of hugs, I'll get it right, don't you worry, and don't think I'm doing this inadvertently. His hordes of thugs, that if he were to be convicted and sentenced and ended up in prison, that they would know what to do. So, I mean, it sure sounds possible, plausible, probable. I just don't know if it's true. And that's the new world we live in. Something interesting. Did you see the picture of that 100-year-old gnome like Henry Kissinger sitting in that big chair talking to the Chinese diplomat in Beijing? 100 years old, and he's flying over to Beijing and doing what Kissinger does. I seem to recall way back when that he was fearful of traveling out of the country because there were countries where he would potentially have been arrested. And I believe that had to do with war crimes or with the Vietnam War. My memory is really hazy here. And it's interesting because it dovetails with what's happening to Putin right now, who the International Criminal Court has flagged for the same kind of charge in Ukraine, and is hence fearful of traveling outside, why he's not attending some big meeting in South Africa, the fear of being arrested in a foreign country. But so clearly, I guess at 100 years old and having achieved that gnome-like status, he isn't afraid. They wouldn't even dare to arrest a 100-year-old little gnome. So there he is, and everything, he sounds like his head's still working well. I recall how Christopher Hitchens, who I alternately loved and loathed, but always was happy to listen to and or read. Christopher Hitchens, one of the things when he knew he was destined to die young, he was most put out by the fact that he wouldn't live to see Henry Kissinger dead. He so hated Kissinger. Now, wow. I mean, Hitchens would have already been considered, if he'd managed to stay alive, he'd be technically old. Kissinger still might outlast him. But when I saw Kissinger sitting in that chair, I did think wistfully of Christopher Hitchens and missed his voice. Oh, God. So, also regarding China, because while Kissinger was there, and not sent as as an agent of the United States government, he was sent there and in fact got a greater reception by the Chinese government than any of the diplomats and folks we have sent over there recently, including Janet Yellen, I believe Blinken, and John Kerry was recently there trying to talk to them about the global environmental crisis and getting nowhere. Because John Kerry, I guess, holds a new portfolio. He's the climate change envoy. And those talks went nowhere, but Kissinger came in and they were just falling all over themselves for the great old diplomatic murderer who helped. He, along with Nixon, he was there when they opened China up, right? To becoming this quasi-capitalist commie country. Strange hybrid that no one had foreseen, I suspect. So all this is to say that the New York Times today has an interesting page in which they talk about China and the United States as it regards both countries' efforts and progress in trying to stem global warming, and also how much both countries are still contributing to the problem of global warming. And I'd just like to share some of the takeaways from it, just for your edification. It shouldn't surprise you, and you already know, that the United States and China are the two biggest polluters. They are, of course, the two most economically powerful countries. And I guess those two things would go together. Thriving, huge economies emitting poison into the atmosphere. So China and the United States are responsible now for being the two greatest greenhouse gas emitters, and strangely are also the world's two largest green tech powerhouses. So one foot in on one side and the other foot in the other for both. If the United States and China could come to some agreement to cut, because they're the two biggies, their greenhouse emissions, it would conceivably be truly consequential for the globe's ability to withstand humanity, I guess, is one way of putting it. Kerry got nowhere. In fact, Xi was heard to say, not only, he wouldn't meet with him. I mean, Kerry talked to other people, but the president wouldn't meet with them. But Xi said that China will follow its own timetable for reducing emissions, and in fact would not in any way agree to something that some other country, unnamed, would suggest. China also says, and this is understandable, that it should have more leeway to pollute than the United States does. Because China has this strange ability to argue that it is not only a global powerhouse, but it's also a developing nation. Now, those things seem to be at odds. I don't know if you can be developing and still be top dog. But they say they should have more leeway to pollute. And anyway, the United States has been doing it a hell of a lot longer, and that does hold more weight. If you look at who's putting out the most carbon dioxide into the atmosphere right now, producing all of these news stories that we've been talking about, wildfires, poisoned air, drought, floods, 1,000-year storms, all of that a result of this emission of greenhouse gases. And China is the largest emitter of carbon dioxide. Putting out, I don't know who's measuring, but it's close to 13 billion metric tons a year. Now that's 13 billion for them, and us, 6 billion. So they're putting out more than twice as much carbon dioxide as we are. But here's what China argues, and a lot of people say they've got a good argument there. If you look at the history of China and the history of the United States, the reality is that we have put out twice as much pollutants and carbon dioxide into the air than China ever did. Twice as much. Why? Because we were an industrialized nation way back in 1850. That's probably the earliest date you would have. But since 1850, if you look, China has probably put out about 284 billion tons. We, 509 billion tons, almost twice as much, because we have been an industrialized nation so much longer. And when these diplomats sit down and start talking these numbers and responsibility and projecting what is a fair thing to ask of themselves and each other, they do say that this idea of cumulative emissions is definitely something that has standing at the table. So the countries like us with higher historic, this would be Great Britain too, they probably are right behind us, Countries with higher historic emissions have a higher burden to respond now. And I think that seems ethically correct. Also, let's throw this in. The average Chinese person, this will shock you, uses far less energy than the average American. That's a shocker, huh? Yeah. The average Chinese person uses, they figure, about 10 tons of carbon pollution annually. You're an average American, you're doing 17.6 tons annually. Who knew people were keeping count? Oh, yeah, they are. So, I mean, I found that really interesting because I've always thought, well, China's the one that's still throwing all this crap out into the air. We're mightily trying to pull back despite Republican interference in doing so. But it is true. China has been a polluter for a relatively short period of time. We've been at it for centuries. Also, China manufactures more green tech than any other country, more solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicle batteries, all that stuff. And they're investing much, much more in clean energy than we are. Much more, like 4 times as much. So it's a very complex, it really is complex. And I really appreciate, this is when I appreciate journalism. When they give me this, a very easily digestible piece of information. Also clearly in this information is how much the Biden administration has been doing. I mean, they are going gangbusters, get no credit, absolutely zero credit. Biden's Inflation Reduction Act had $370 billion in clean energy investment in it. He's got that's going to be going into wind, solar, green, hydrogen, nuclear, and other non-fossil fuel power. Anyway. The United States has not built a coal plant since 2013. And there has been a 40% decline in coal-fired power generation in this country just in the last 10 years. And yet we still see those barges going down the Mon filled with coal. China burns more of it than the rest of the world combined. Maybe that coal we see going down the Mon ends up in China. Because China, I know, imports most of its oil. I would imagine it mines its own coal. So just some of the stuff that was in this, just not even a full page piece on the job, the challenge that must be met in the very near future. And I know one does worry that given the track record of humans trying to attack in a proactive manner a global problem, it is really it's just not exactly it just doesn't make you feel real hopeful. And yet, sometimes we surprise you. Or two now. Oh, I was saying yesterday that I wasn't going to talk a lot about all the legal crap that Donald Trump is finding himself in. I think next month is going to be, it's just going to be an indictment a day. I mean, next month is when probably Jack Smith will come down with these January 6th charges against him. August is supposed to be when the Atlanta DA comes at him for trying to mess with the election results in Georgia. And, it's just going to keep on humming. And one of the things I had said, I'm grateful and I'm cheerleading from the sidelines, but I'm just so annoyed at how long it's taken to begin this exercise in accountability, to have our legal system kick in. They went after the easy things. They went after the idiots who were at the Capitol on January 6th. That's not tough. But that's always the case. Rounding up the corner drug dealer, that's easy. How about the guy who supplies that little guy and then the guy on top of all those suppliers? Those are the people that you need to get at, the head of the problem. And of course, Trump is. So I was really wondering why it took so damn long. And the Washington Post today, they did talk about that, the timing. And it's quite clear, flanking on him, and the FBI director, way up there, those were the guys that literally resisted investigation into Trump and his role in January 6th. In fact, if you think back at the extraordinary January 6th congressional hearings, that beautifully choreographed job, historic. It was there, just brilliant, putting the case that it was Donald Trump at the head of this insurrection, putting the case directly to the American people, and justice had nothing it could do but to say, yeah, I guess you're right. That's pretty compelling. But the Washington Post said that the leadership of the FBI and the Justice Department 3 times resisted and batted down proposals from prosecutors in the Justice Department and agents at the FBI to open up investigations into Trump's, or name the other, Giuliani, Meadows, all these other guys, to over their role in trying to overturn the election. And so that refusal to immediately jump into what was clearly, I mean, we all saw the crimes being committed in front of our eyes. But if you do the math, that delayed any effort to go after the higher ups for 14 months, over a year. We're 2.5 years out from the event. 14 months totally wasted, which is why we are now running into the problem of going after the guy who tried to subvert the last election while he's running for the next election. And if justice and the FBI had not been so lily-livered, and the reason is it's such a riot, they did not want to appear to be doing it for political reasons. Well, here's how absurd that is. Because that's what they're being charged with now. It wouldn't matter if they'd done it then. What did they think? If they waited for 14 months, the Republicans wouldn't say, you're politicizing the Justice Department? And what they've done, because this has had that 14-month delay, it has really made Jack Smith, the poor soul who all this has now been dumped on, has really given him a much shorter window in which to do his job. So he's got to now go at breakneck speed as much as the legal system will allow. But timidity at the top. I have a caller. Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
You won't have to worry about him being a nominee. He will not be the nominee. Sanders will not be the nominee. Who I'm going to say, you will say I'm full of crap, but I'm telling you, and you heard it from me, Chris Christie will be the nominee. I guarantee it. He will be the nominee. He will be the sensible one, and he will be bashing Trump so bad and tearing the out of these people on the stage, because he is vicious as Trump, is not worse, and he's a former prosecutor. He will blow them all away. You watch and see. I'm not lying to you. This guy will be the nominee. I'm standing by that. He will be the nominee.
Okay.
He's not stupid. You might not like his policy. He is not a stupid man, and I love what he's doing. I wouldn't vote for him. Hell no. I don't know what his policies are, but I say he's going to be the nominee. I've said that from when he's got into the race. So
okay. All right. We'll hold you to that. Okay.
What's that?
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be a nominee, though. Even if Christie,
Wait a minute.
I think he's going to fade out.
Trump,
I mean, not Chris Christie, but Trump. I don't think he'll.
Yeah. Okay.
But but that's who I think is going to be the nominee.
Okay.
All right. Call
Anything's
me crazy.
possible. No.
Yeah.
I'm not. Okay. Bye-bye. I mean, that would require, though, Chris Christie being the nominee would require, him actually, with his lacerating verbosity in the debates, breaking through to the brainwashed cult. And what I've learned now about brainwashed cult people, it's not going to work. I don't know. I don't know. I do agree that Christie is damaging. I mean, doing the kind of damage you love to see to Trump. He's as brutal as a Democratic nominee would be, perhaps. But I don't know. I agree it ain't going to be DeSantis. He's become a joke, thank God. But who the hell knows? It is hard to imagine that millions of Americans would go to the polls and vote for a guy who is on trial or indicted in so many felonies. Your head spins in his private life, in his role as the former president, and yet people would vote for him. It's amazing. It's amazing. You got to wonder about sort of the moral center of voters like that. And what's fascinating to me is how many of them are also proudly, aggressively so-called Christians. It just don't make no sense. But that's where we've been for a long time. It just don't make no sense. Things in the rabbit hole aren't supposed to make sense, and man, they have not. But yeah. What else I got? Barbara, you're right about that. Barbara said in regard to China and the U.S., you haven't mentioned population. So even if fewer Chinese don't use anywhere near the individual Chinese energy as Americans do, there's so many damn more of them. There's like, I don't know, 7 times more? I can't do the math. More than 7 times more. 10 times more? No. I don't know. There is a shitload of... Hey, that reminds me of I was doing... Was it a crossword puzzle? It must have been a crossword puzzle because the clue was the largest ethnic group in the world, responsible for something like, it was amazing, it was like 18% of the world's population is this ethnic group. Now, I've already given you this huge hint by virtue of this coming into my head while we're talking about what we're talking about. But it was only 3 letters. And I thought, what? And I couldn't think, what? Ethnic group? 3 letters? 18% of the population of the world? How the hell don't I know that? And then little by little by little, I did figure it out. I mean, I don't know if I got it right, but I put down Han. Is that right? H-A-N? Would that have been it? Because I still I haven't done the whole puzzle, but I suspect that would be it. Yeah, so you're talking about, as I indelicately said just moments ago, a shitload of people. Almost a 1/5 of the population of the world. Whoa. But didn't I just read that India is about to pass China as the most populous nation? So between the 2 of them, God almighty. It's why if you're anywhere near CMU, almost everybody you see either looks like they're from India or China. You start scanning. Is there a white or a black person anywhere in here? Come on. Let me see. Not that we're like totally thinking about race all the time in this country, but geez, woo. Here's something funny. Well, I don't know. That's up to you to decide. It's always never a good thing to say to people before you're about to say something. Hey, this is really funny. Because how do you know they're going to think it's funny? I mean, once you say that, you have put the kibosh on yourself. Oh, you put the pressure on, for sure, to make it funny. And actually, what I'm about to share with you is not necessarily funny, but again, this showed up on social media. Somebody took a picture of use one of our screens to take a picture of another screen This is our lives now. And the person who took the picture said, so I grabbed a bottle of water at some, I don't know, like a quickie place. Went in and got herself a bottle of water. And then she went to the self-checkout. So she gets the water, she goes to the checkout, she scans the bottle of water, and then a question pops up on the screen. Now, I have to admit, I have not seen it. I just did all the work. I picked it up. I brought it over here. I'm scanning it. I'm about to pay for it. I have interacted with no other human being. And you want me to leave a tip? What? Can you imagine any? Now I can see people say, well, what about the person who stocked it? Who put the water there in the first place? That's the person you'd be tipping. I don't know. I mean, it is so ridiculous. This is a very American thing. This idea that somehow the customers should literally pay the employees. The employer, not so much. Good God. I mean, there you go. I think that's okay. That was it. Did you think that was funny? Well, it's audacious. Here's something funny, or not. You know how I like to make fun of the app Nextdoor, the so-called neighborhood thing where people complain about dog walkers all the time, where you deposit your poop or letting your dog poop on somebody's yard. They hate you for it, even if you pick it up. It just doesn't matter. No matter what you do, there are people literally who clearly just sit at their windows and watch for something to get pissed off about. And the level of outrage on Nextdoor is such a riot. And it's gotten as nasty as all these, just unbelievable. About pickleball. The pickleball wars of Edgewood. It's might be about to erupt. And when I saw the initial post, it was from a woman, and it was very well done. Very calm and filled with information. She's a woman who lives next door to a facility in Edgewood in a residential area that does have tennis courts. And I guess they're planning on making at least one of the tennis courts into a few pickleball courts. And the woman was putting out that she was looking for people to sign a petition to beg the folks not to do it. And then she went into why pickleball is like not something you want to be living next door to. And actually, I've read a lot of things about this. The New York Times is full of these stories. The pickleball wars coming to a neighborhood near you. It's because, I guess, so many people, Americans just love fads. This is the latest fad. And so there are places in the world, and this woman doesn't want it next to her in Edgewood, where pickleball is played just constantly. And apparently, this is another thing I read, that there's something about the noise of pickleball that is much more annoying than, let's say, tennis. We know what tennis sounds like. There's something about the pickleball and the racket that creates a decibel level that is equivalent to like those horrible beeping sounds that trucks make when they're backing up. I kid you not. So, I mean, I'm sympathetic. I wouldn't want that next door to me. But boy, all hell broke with people coming at her. And I thought, geez, I don't know. I'm on her side. If I were living there, I'd say, keep those pickleballers away. Somebody did point out, look, lady, you live next to a tennis court? Or how about, and she says, I work from home. How am I supposed to? But God, you cannot imagine the heat that was generated. It was something. And then the ad hominem attacks on her. When she had put out her feelings, her opinion, her plea in a very civilized manner. And then you see how so many of us have forgotten or never knew how to engage in a conversation or even an argument, as opposed to just ripping into somebody, ridiculing. It's a real masterclass in human nature and where we are right now as a people. And I would say it is not most of us that are the ugly folks, but God, there's a lot of them. God, there's a lot of them. And I just want to say that I don't know where you stand on the great pickleball war, but whoa. You think it's hot between Republicans and Democrats? Gee. What? Hang on, I inadvertently, and now it won't let me go. Excuse me. Excuse me while I scream at my screen. Welcome to 2023. Okay. Just trying to get back to my page. That. Because I saw an email from somebody. I'm just trying to get to your email, for God's sakes. Here it is. Benjamin. Lynn, I once attended a meeting with the provost of CMU regarding immigrant graduate student literacy. He gave these numbers at the time. By raw numbers, CMU ranks 25th for the number of immigrant students. The top 24 are all huge state schools. But by percentage, CMU easily has the highest percentage of immigrant students of any university in the United States. And I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise. Yeah, it's, yeah. I have confessed to this before, and I trotted him out just the other day when I was driving down Forbes and found myself at CMU. Sometimes when I'm bored, I've said this a million times, I'm bored, I'm driving. And I see something and it makes me think. And what I did is I conjure up, because it's, if you're by yourself, you can't turn and talk to yourself. Well, you can. But I instead invent a pattern. Okay, I am being told that there is some inning and outing of the streaming service, but that I should continue apace. Are you getting every other word I'm saying? Whatever, I'm going to keep going. So I conjured Ben because I wanted him to see I said, we're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, United States, Ben. I said, look at these faces. Look at these people on the sidewalks. And I said that to him because I couldn't see a white or a black person. And he's looking and saying, wow. Because I'm looking and saying, whoa, Now, I don't have, like some Americans, I don't have a negative reaction to that. I have just a whoa reaction. And so then I got into thinking, so that I could be conversing with Ben about globalization and how, of course, people from all over the world would come. This is a major world university. I mean, they come here from everywhere. And I said, and once you're a student and you're competing for a spot, not just with people in your town, not just with people in your country, but with people in the world right now. It's just an interesting reality. Ben thought so. Just saying. Oh, what do I got? I heard this and found it incredible. Barbara sent this to me. That President Biden has put out a campaign ad. If you have seen this, I wish somebody would send it to me because I haven't seen it. Has put out a campaign ad that extolling the incredible accomplishments of his presidency, and the person who he's using to extol his presidency is really eye-opening, because he's using clips from a recent speech given at a conservative conference of some sort, a speech given by Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she is talking about Biden in ways that make her audience, I guess, hiss and boo. But while she's telling them how awful Biden is, she's comparing him to Franklin Roosevelt and to Lyndon Johnson, which, of course, Biden thinks, whoa, that's great. And in fact, she says this in the video. Joe Biden had the largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs that is actually finishing what FDR started, that LBJ expanded on, and Joe Biden is attempting to complete. Now, I find this so, it causes such cognitive dissonance in my head, because she's saying this as if it's the most horrible thing imaginable, right? This is her, she's throwing red meat to these conservatives who think it would be terrible to finish what FDR and Lyndon Johnson started, which is a more humane America, right? And so apparently the ad takes Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about the horrors that Joe Biden is perpetrating on unwitting Americans. And there's like very happy music, like probably, you know, da, 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 da. Yeah, in the background. It says the ad continues with another clip from a speech she gave over the weekend, in which she's still complaining about the Biden administration. And she says, well, there's programs to address education, medical care, urban problems, rural poverty, transportation, Medicare, Medicaid, labor unions, and he's still working on it. What? Well, if, again, I hate these caveats I now make all the time. If, again, that is true, does that not show how we inhabit literally different realities? and that we have different dreams, that we're wanting just totally different things. What I mean, Republicans don't want to address infrastructure or rural poverty, or I'm left speechless. I'm left speechless. Oh, Jonathan, thank you for sending it to me. Thank you. So I guess it does exist. That is incredible. Hey, here's this other thing. This is weird. I read in the Pittsburgh Courier that, oh, my connection, sorry. Oh, excuse me. I can't get to it. That, oh, God. Maybe wait, I can get to it this way. Hang on. There's more than one way to skin a cat, which is such a disgusting kind of, you know what I mean? I mean, where did that come from? When did we skin cats, for God's sake? And I don't even want to know the ways. Here, I did. I get it this way, I think. Yeah. So what happened is a state representative from the eastern end of Pittsburgh, Latasha D. Mays, got a bill. This is her first time in since getting elected. And she's already had a bill that passed the House. And it had been, I guess, in the last few legislative sessions, unable to get anywhere. And it got through. And this is a bill that ends, get this, hair, H-A-I-R, hair discrimination. And I thought, what? And then I thought, well, yeah. I mean, in my life, God knows hair has been a flashpoint on the political scene a lot, right? Long hair in the 60s, afros. I mean, there were always ways to use hair to strut your stuff, to show yourself as you bit. Discrimination based on hair type, hair texture, hairstyle in employment, in schools, because kids have been kicked out of schools or not allowed to grab, all this kind of stuff, and other public settings. The Republicans have stood in the way of this, as they stand in the way of absolutely everything. And I'm sure that will continue. So I don't know that this is going to end up on Shapiro's desk anytime soon. Although 23 states have passed similar hair discrimination acts into law. And I got to tell you, including, this will blow your mind, Texas. Totally Republican controlled. Texas passed that law in this year. The cities of Pittsburgh and Philly have such ordinances. So we'll see. Maybe it'll get passed. Maybe now, if it passed in Texas, then maybe it would. So I'm just saying that, but that also brings me to a picture, and this will end the show. A picture I saw on the sports page, and it's a story about this amazing basketball player named Aaliyah Boston. She's a rookie in the WNBA, and I mean, she's already, just going gangbusters. She was the first rookie to be named a starter for the WNBA All-Star game in 9 years. And she's just, anyway, there's a picture of her. And the picture, I guess, maybe from the perspective, I sort of understand perspective, how things closer can look larger than they really are. But it shows her she's moving, she's dribbling past a defender, and her hair, this is what I'm bringing up, she is wearing these long braided extensions. And they are, because she's moving so fast, they are flying out behind her in a million directions. And in the picture, it's why I'm sure they chose this picture, because it's wondrous. Her hair, these things are everywhere. And so there's a sense of such movement. Her hair going here and she going there and the ball moving. And so it's a very dynamic photo. But I was thinking, geez, what if you were trying to defend against her and that hair, you not only had to contend with, but that hair, which could like whip around. I mean, I thought, I can see where, the NBA but I thought that with football too, when you'd start seeing this long hair hanging out of helmets. And I'm thinking, can you get tackled if somebody grabs your hair? I bet you could. So is that a detriment to athletes? It'll be against the law in a lot of states. You can't say to Aaliyah Boston, I just don't know that you can wear that long extensions, because it's sort of an unfair thing for somebody trying to defend you if you're whipping your head around and it's like a million little, like whips going here and there that you also. So I was wondering about that, apropos of absolutely nothing. But having heard about the hair discrimination thing and realizing that my immediate impulse was, well, maybe that should not be allowed, would be, yeah, you can't do that. That would be a worker being told by an employer how she could wear her hair. Or the same in football. Just saying. So, well, I guess that's it for me. So I thank you very much. Ray, if you're listening, I was trying mightily today not to be a catastrophist. And I think I did pretty good. And I hope you all have a really good weekend. And I'll be back on Monday. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.